Good afternoon and thank you for joining me. Today I want to outline some of the positive preparations that I'm making as Finance Minister for the upcoming Welsh Government budget on the 20th of December. I also want to outline a new £51 million household support fund that the Welsh Government is launching today to give individuals and families some targeted extra help during the difficult winter ahead. As Finance Minister, I was clear when the UK Government published its comprehensive spending review on the 27th of October about the missed opportunity it was for Wales, for social justice and for our environment. Our spending review settlement sees our capital budgets in Wales flatline over the next 3 years, at a time when vital investment is needed to support decarbonisation and the road to net zero. Vital funding support, such as £375 million that the Welsh Government received every year through EU funds, and which does so much to support critical skills and investment across Wales, has been stolen away with no regard for the consequences for the individuals and the families that benefit from those funds. And between 22 and 23 and 24 and 25, the Welsh Government's revenue funding will increase by less than 0.5% in real terms, a tiny uplift in funding that doesn't even begin to meet the scale of the challenges faced by public services, by families and by businesses. Despite our clear call to the UK Government to provide long-term certainty for Welsh communities affected by storms and by flooding and coal tip safety issues, the spending review contained no response from the Chancellor to these vital Welsh priorities. But my job is now to look forward. In spite of the challenges that the spending review fails to address, my task is to prepare the Welsh Government budget, which we will publish on the 20th of December, and set out a positive way forward to build a greener, fairer and more equal Wales. In order to do that, through the summer I've been working with partners across Wales to listen to their budget priorities. I've been listening to local government, to the NHS and to the third sector about the pressures facing public services right across the country. I've been listening carefully to the challenges faced by businesses and those in key sectors of our economy about the recovery that they want to see, building back fairer than before. And I've been working with my colleagues across Welsh Government about how to explore how we can make real our ambitions to get to net zero, to tackle the nature emergency, and to support the more sustainable Wales that the recent COP26 has reminded us clearly both this and future generations need. I'll be finalising our Welsh Government budget in the coming weeks. As a Welsh Labour Government, social justice will be at the heart of our proposals. Front and centre of our thinking will be those individuals, particularly those on the lowest incomes, who have been failed by the UK Government's spending review. People who will be hard hit by the cuts to universal credit, the effect of inflation and higher national insurance contributions. The Resolution Foundation has calculated the basic rate of unemployment benefit will be less than the level of support was 30 years ago in real terms. Many people on low incomes will be considerably poorer than they were a decade ago because of UK Government austerity measures. Our Welsh Government budget cannot address it all, but we will do everything we can to help those who need the support the most. Ahead of the Welsh Government laying its budget next month, I am today announcing an important new package of support, a £51 million Welsh Household Support Fund that targets support at the most vulnerable. It aims to provide help to people who need it most, particularly through the challenging winter period. We'll be making further, more detailed announcements as each part of the package is launched. Today I'm announcing the first elements of the package. This includes a new £38 million winter fuel support scheme to support households in receipt of working-age means-tested benefits. Eligible households will be able to claim a one-off £100 cash payment to provide support towards their winter energy bills. Help will be available to people regardless of whether they pay for their energy on a prepayment meter, by direct debit, or whether they pay quarterly. Local authorities across Wales will be writing to eligible households, and people who qualify for support can also submit a claim via their local council. Today we're also making £1.1 million available to support food banks, community food partnerships and community hubs to help them tackle food poverty, address insecurity and help those services widen the range of support that they provide. This will include extending the highly successful Big Box Boyd scheme to more than 25 more schools. At the Welsh Government's budget on the 20th of December, I'll have more to say about the support that we're making available over the next 3 years to help people who need it. But my ending message today is directed towards the UK Government, and it's a clear one. There is a clear and growing crisis in the UK, a cost of living crisis that it's not tackling and that it neglected to address in the spending review, and that it needs to take further rapid steps to target greater support to lower income households struggling as a result of the cut to universal credit, the future increase in national insurance contributions and spiralling energy prices. So I will leave it there, and now I'm happy to turn to journalists to take questions, and we go first to Sarah Dickens, BBC Wales.
Minister, thank you very much for that. As you know, the Senedd Equality and Social Justice Committee has brought out a report on debt and the pandemic, and what's clear from that is that council tax debt is a huge proportion, the biggest problem for people, and in fact council tax arrears have gone up by 30% compared with 2019. In that report, they talk about a debt bonfire. What do you think about that? And if that happened, would the Welsh Government reimburse those councils?
Thank you very much for raising that, and it is absolutely the case that more families and households are struggling to pay bills, including council tax, as a result of the pandemic. And it's certainly the case that the Welsh Government has tried to put in place as generous a package of support as possible to support people to pay their council tax bills. And people may have found that through the course of the pandemic, they've become eligible for this support for the first time, but not yet actually applied for it or realised that they have come into scope for it. So I'd encourage everybody who may be struggling with council tax in the first instance to check the Welsh Government's website or speak to their local council about the help which is available. We support around 220,000 households across Wales with their council tax, so I think that would be the first port of call and the first advice that I would give. But it's also absolutely the case that council tax is a regressive tax. The biggest burden falls on those who can least afford to pay, and that's why we've got a really extensive programme of council tax reform, which I've been leading on over the course of the last Senedd, but now which is getting to the point where we're starting to look at what the next steps might look at. We've got some quite radical options ahead of us. One could be a revaluation with more bands at different ends of the system, or we could be looking at a land value tax, for example, or seeking what more we can do with the system we have at the moment. So lots of interesting choices that we have available for us, but it is all focused on making council tax fairer for people. So I just would finally add that Welsh Government has provided significant support to local authorities through the course of the pandemic to help them with the non-collection of council tax, because we saw those rates go up because councils were working so hard on other things, supporting us getting money to businesses and so on. So we were able to support council tax support local authorities in that regard as well. But I'll be looking very closely at the committee's work too.
The sheer fact that, as you were saying, you have to step in and help in so many instances, doesn't that suggest that council tax doesn't work in the way that it is set up at the moment? And so are you going to get rid of a property-based council tax?
We haven't made any decision on the precise way forward yet, but over the course of the last Senedd term, we looked at lots of different options, including a revaluation, that land value tax I was talking about, a local income tax. Now, some of these options just won't be viable. Some would take more than one Senedd term to implement, but others actually do offer us a way to make council tax much fairer. And we want to do that because I think we've done as much as we can with the existing system to make it fairer. For example, we've removed young people up to the age of 25 out of the burden of council tax when they've been leaving care, for example. We've worked with money-saving expert Martin Lewis to ensure that people who have severe mental impairment, as it's called, are able to access the support to which they're entitled. And we've removed the threat of imprisonment for the non-payment of council tax, because obviously struggling shouldn't be treated as a crime. So we've done a lot in this area to make it fairer, but it is a regressive tax and that needs to be addressed. So we're looking forward to saying more, hopefully before Christmas, after we have some further discussions with local authorities and others about the most practical way forward, and that which will result in a much more fair system.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Over to Adrian Masters, ITV Wales.
Thank you, Minister. You ended with criticism of the UK government, but the UK government says that it's supplying the Welsh government with £2.5 billion a year more in terms of funding. So doesn't that answer your criticism? And related to that, because it's about the relationship between the two governments, have you ensured with the Treasury and the DWP that people who qualify for this payment won't have any impact on their benefits or tax?
Thank you for that question. I'll take the second first. Yes, we have worked closely with HMRC and HMT to ensure that people who do have the £100 payment to help with their fuel costs over the winter aren't penalised in terms of their benefits. So I'm pleased we were able to get to a positive conclusion on that with the UK government. But it is the case that our budget will be lower in cash terms than it is at the moment, and that's partly because of the way in which the UK government is dealing with COVID funding for future years. It's been subsumed now into baseline budgets. So there are real challenges ahead when you think about the inflationary pressures and the system pressures that we have in Wales. There are not going to be easy decisions to make in our budget in our budget discussions. Obviously, we'll be prioritising health and social services and giving local government the best possible settlement. But there are big challenges in terms of being able to do everything that we would wish to do as quickly as we would wish to do it. And there were things that the UK government failed to address in the spending review. For example, coal tip funding. Now, we've been clear that coal tips and the issues surrounding coal tips obviously predate devolution. And this is a responsibility that the UK government could or should have stepped into, or at least look to share with us, and it's reneged on those responsibilities. And let's remember that these communities didn't hold on to the wealth that was created through the coal mining businesses. Quite the opposite, actually. The legacy has been a very difficult one, both socioeconomically and in terms of health. So I thought it would have been an opportunity for the UK government to make real its talk on levelling up to fund the coal tip works. But that said, I've been really clear that that work absolutely needs to happen. The safety of these communities is front and centre. So I'll be saying more about that when we publish the budget on the 20th of December. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think you've touched on this in your opening remarks, but although I'm sure interim payments will be welcome to a lot of families, but what are you as a government doing to raise income levels and prosperity in the longer term? Because it's Labour has been in charge of the Welsh government for the last 2 decades, and yet wages remain stubbornly low. So what will you do differently to improve the long-term prospects for people?
We need to make sure that everybody in Wales can achieve their full potential, and we have a number of exciting things which we're working on at the moment. You'll have seen the announcement from my colleague Vaughan Gethin just today on the youth guarantee and how we're working to ensure that young people are able to access training or employment or support for self-employment to ensure that they have the best possible start as they move into their adult life. And we're also looking to invest more in our personal learning accounts, and these are accounts which individuals can access to upskill or to retrain to other work to ensure that they're able to move up the ladder within their chosen workplace or their chosen profession, to make sure that they are able to maximise their own income there. So those are 2 really exciting projects which we're working on at the moment, and which I hope will support people to really achieve their full potential. Okay, thank you, Adrian. Over now to Ruth Masalski, Wales Online.
Thank you, Minister. Can I ask your response to the images of packed trains in Cardiff on Saturday night after the football? They showed people really closely together. There are trains operated by Welsh Government. Do you think that's safe in the current climate? And can you tell us what action is being taken to stop those scenes being repeated?
Thank you for that question. It is really important that all public transport plays the role that it has in terms of people keeping people safe, and risk assessments they need to be an important part of that, obviously. We're working closely with Transport for Wales to make sure that people understand the responsibilities on them as passengers when they get onto those trains, and also with other public transport providers in terms of mask wearing, for example. So we need to see that there are more there is more signage, but also more announcements on those trains to ensure that people are aware of what's required of them. Clearly, we'll have to, through my colleagues in Transport, be talking to Transport for Wales about the number of trains available and so forth, to try and ensure that we're doing everything that we can to get people home safely from the international games and other large events that the capital city in particular hosts. But I appreciate this is an issue across Wales.
Thank you. And can we ask, the First Minister's already suggested that COVID passes may well be introduced for bars and restaurants and hospitality venues. Because cases at the minute are going both up and down in quite quick succession, can you tell us what criteria you're looking at about introducing that, and how you're going to make that decision? It can't just be as simple as cases going up or down.
So at the moment, we have no immediate plans to introduce those COVID passes more widely than they are at the moment. Of course, today they've been extended to theatres, to concert halls and to cinemas. And there is an ongoing discussion with the hospitality sector more widely about what we can be doing to ensure that people are safe in those environments. But there's no immediate plan that I'm able to talk about, because there is no immediate plan to introduce such requirements. However, the First Minister will be making an announcement on the outcome of the latest 21-day review, and he'll be doing that on Thursday of this week, where he'll be able to present more about where we see things going over the next 3 weeks. Okay, thank you. And now we go to Daniel Bevan, LBC.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon to you. Just following on from that, we understand there's not going to be a presser, as there usually is on Friday. You mentioned there about the First Minister revealing on Thursday the result of the review, but I wondered if you might be able to tell us where the wind is blowing, in which direction, in terms of if there's going to be any more restrictions announced, or if we will carry on as we are.
Well, Dan, I don't want to preempt or predetermine the announcements which the First Minister will be making on Thursday. As you say, we normally make those announcements on Thursday, but this Friday we are really proud to be hosting the British Irish Council meeting here in Wales. So the announcement will be on Thursday of this week, and I don't want to preempt anything there. But I will say that cases are coming down, or the prevalence is coming down at the moment, which is positive. However, we are still in quite a critical situation, and the amount of coronavirus in our communities is still very high. So there's lots that we all still have to do individually and collectively to keep ourselves and each other safe.
Thank you. And go back to your opening statement as well, the £1.1 million for food banks. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't seem like a great deal of money when you compare it to the energy announcement that you've also made today. Now, if people are legitimately choosing between heating and eating, which people will be this winter, naturally, and for obvious reasons, they will be more concerned about eating rather than heating if they had to choose. So I wonder if the Welsh Government has got its priorities in the right order here.
We already have a discretionary assistant fund available for people in Wales, and actually it's been there for many years for people to access immediate funding if they find themselves in very difficult financial circumstances. And people can talk to their local member of the Senedd or member of Parliament, or if they have a social worker, they can talk to the social worker or their GP about this fund to find out more about how to make an application. And you can look to the Welsh Government website for that as well. We've extended the number of times that people can access a discretionary assistance fund payment during the course of the pandemic. Previously, you could access 3 payments a year. We've now extended that to 5. So if people are in that kind of situation, which you've described, Dan, I would absolutely encourage them to explore what support they can have from the Discretionary Assistance Fund, which is about providing immediate financial support directly to individuals and families for things like food, if that's the struggle, or if they have an unexpected breakdown of white goods which need to be replaced, and they're not in a position to do that. So I absolutely commend that fund to people who need it. Okay, thank you. And lastly to Harry Hansen, That's TV, South Wales.
Thank you, Minister. I wanted to ask you about the £100 one-off payment, which many families are going to benefit from, which is great. However, do you really think it's going far enough? Most families do pay more than £100 a month on their energy bills. Do you think the government needs to do more?
I think the fund today will certainly help some of the families who we're targeting this at over the course of the winter, and it's partly in respect of the increase in energy prices that we're seeing at the moment. So it's to help with the unexpectedly higher bills that I think families will be facing, and we should be able to reach around 350,000 households with this payment, which I think is very positive as well. But as I said in my remarks in response to the question from Daniel Bevan, the Discretionary Support Fund is there for people who need it, and I would encourage them to have a look on the Welsh Government's website to see if there is that additional support that they can access up to 5 times a year for financial support if they do find themselves in very difficult circumstances. But I think that, you know, the fact that we're putting so much focus on this, and this is very much an area where the UK government needs to be stepping in, really just demonstrates how the UK government has just washed its hands of people who are on low incomes and who are struggling, because Welsh Government can do as much as we can, but however the benefits and welfare system is in the hands with the UK government, and they need to be stepping in. They still can reverse that £20 cut to universal credit if they want to. And let's remember that this isn't an issue which just affects a few people. The Resolution Foundation has shown that 1 in 5 households in Wales could be losing £1,040 a year as a result of the cut to universal credit, and that's, you know, no small amount of money. So this is going to be an issue which is affecting large numbers of households across Wales. It's not too late for the UK government to reverse its policy on that.
Thank you. On a slightly different note, I wanted to ask about the upcoming budget. The UK government's budget was heavily criticised for not focusing enough on supporting mental health services. Can you tell me today whether your budget will be more acknowledging of the mental health of people in Wales?
Thank you for raising that, and I don't want to obviously preempt anything that I'm going to be saying on the 20th of December in terms of the budget, because discussions are still ongoing with colleagues. But what I will say is that we have put a special focus on mental health in the preparations for this budget. I convened a roundtable of ministers to discuss precisely this, because mental health cuts across government in so many ways. It's not just the responsibility of the health minister. The economy minister obviously has a strong interest in terms of mental health in the workplace. The education minister has a very strong interest in terms of children, young people's mental health. So we have had some really good discussions on these cross-cutting areas, and I do hope that you will recognise a focus on mental health when we do publish the budget next month. Great, okay, so that's all of our questions for today. Thank you very much for joining us.